Welcome to episode 136 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, we play Star Fox 64. Let's get right into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have two friends with me. The first friend, you know him, you love him, he's the king of momentum. It's Momertati.
Oh, I'm excited to play the game based off of my favorite Smash Bros. Character. Let's go.
Ooh, and here to talk about a very good N64 game. He is the editor-in-chief and co-founder of 6-1 Indie. It's Mike Towndrow. Mike, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Finally, somebody has the courage to give me a platform to talk about Star Fox 64.
Hey.
All of my 6-1 Indie staff filled with cowards. Don't let me, always put me down about Star Fox.
Name them. Name the cowards. Do it. Call them out. All
Kyle Stevenson, Jacob Palmer, Matthew Wright, cowards.
Cowards. Dang.
Cowards.
Well, listen, before we get into this very good video game, I want to run you through something we call the Gauntlet.
Yes.
For those folks who are listening who don't know who you are, we're just going to ask you a couple questions so that we can kind of paint a picture of your gaming tendencies and what you love in video games. Are you ready?
Yes.
First question. What is your earliest gaming memory?
Playing Lion King on Genesis.
Ooh. Very good. Very good.
My first video game, and I have fond memories of like whatever I was, like 2 years old, like sitting on my floor, like just being completely engrossed in my Genesis and absolutely hating that one level where you have to, what is it, like you have to jump on the monkeys or something, or the giraffes? You have to jump on the giraffes?
I can't remember.
Terrible. Then I discovered second greatest franchise of all time, Sonic the Hedgehog. You know what I'm saying?
Very good. So my follow-up question, Genesis or Super Nintendo?
Oh, Super Nintendo.
Oh, shoot. I thought you were going to say
yeah,
Genesis.
I mean, there's no question. No.
Okay. Favorite Super
Genesis
Nintendo game?
Favorite Super Nintendo game? I mean, it's kind of a cheat answer, but Star Fox SNES.
Oh.
Nice. Okay. Did you play Star Fox 2?
Yes. Recently. Because, well, I mean, pseudo recently with the mini console.
What game have you spent the most hours on?
Well, so kind of ties into this episode. Star Fox 64, I make sure I do a playthrough at least annually.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Just to I mean, also we'll talk about it. Playthroughs are what, like a half hour, so like maybe it doesn't add up that much. You know, I'm 30 years old. You can do the math. But other than that, probably Bloodborne.
Okay.
I've played Bloodborne. I played through Bloodborne to completion 4 or 5 times probably at this point.
And how long is that game? Like 30, 40? Longer?
It depends.
First playthrough will run you quite a bit, maybe like 50, 60 if you're, especially like me, that was my first Souls-like. So really struggling through that like for 60 or so hours. And then if you're doing like all the Chalice Dungeon stuff, that's another God knows how many hours, especially if you're trying to like platinum that game and whatnot. But once you know the bosses, once you know the mechanics, you could speed through that game in like no time at all.
One thing that the staff of the Left Behind Game Club is trying to get me to do is play a Soulsborne game.
We're going to do it,
I think in 22 they might succeed.
We're going to do it.
Dude, I mean, we'll see. From what I see of Elden Ring, it looks like the most accessible one yet. I would highly recommend Bloodborne being your first one.
Okay, because I think the staff here, they're like, should you play Dark Souls first? Should you play Demon Souls first? Or Bloodborne first? Those are the options.
I think the original Dark Souls is a fantastic game. I think at this point it's a little too dated in mechanics and whatnot, and it feels sluggish. 2, not super great. I mean, it's fine, but I couldn't get into 2. Demon Souls might be a little, for a lack of a better term, punishing, just in the non-linear sense. Where I would recommend for any of these games, I recommend following a guide for your first go. But Bloodborne, between like the speed and the reliance on kind of offensive plays and not really having to rely on like a more precise parry system that Dark Souls has. I think Bloodborne is kind of the most accessible until Elden Ring comes out.
Final question in the Gauntlet. What is your most controversial video game opinion?
Undertale is a bad game.
Ooh.
Which one's a bad game?
Undertale?
Ooh. What? What? Huh? Why? Explain. Use
One
words.
of Jacob's favorite games.
I don't know. I don't remember playing much of it. I platinumed that game, and I absolutely hated my entire time with that game.
Damn.
I just think it's convoluted and just, I don't know.
Have you played Deltarune?
I'm not a fan. Not yet. I am going to give it a chance.
Okay. So you're saying you
I don't know,
don't like indie games?
I hate indie games. This whole company is a front.
Oh, come on. It's a great company. You run a great website with some great people.
Thanks.
So thank you for being here today. We're
Thank
going to
you.
talk about Star Fox 64, developed by the Nintendo Entertainment Analysis and Development Division, published by Nintendo for the N64, originally released in North America on June 30th of 1997. We keep this show rolling with a segment that we call the Fast Pitch, which is a one-sentence description of the game that we're about to talk about. Who wants to give their fast pitch of Star Fox 64 first? Mosin. Here we go.
First. Here we go. It's Super Smash Bros. Credits video game. That's how I explain it to someone, because I feel like a lot of people have probably played Smash Bros. So I'll just say Smash Bros. Credits video game.
I don't understand what you just said.
Oh, so you don't
Like,
Sorry,
Go ahead,
when you go like when you're playing Super Smash Bros. Like classic mode or whatever, the end you can use the Star Fox ship and shoot the credits of the developers.
The credits of Smash 64. I understand.
Yeah,
very cute.
That's my Star Fox 64 one-liner.
Mike, this is one of your favorite games of all time. Why don't you go next?
on-rail space epic, Star Fox meets Muppets.
Very good. And we're going to talk about some Muppet stuff, I'm assuming, later in the show. For me, I'm not going to do better than that, so I'm going to say stuffed animals go pew-pew on the N64. Here we are.
Oh.
What are you holding up, Mike?
I mean, if we're talking about Muppets, this is my portrait of Rizzo the Rat that I just offhandedly have on the floor next to me.
Was this a purchase or was this a creation?
This is, I believe, an anniversary gift.
Even better than I was expecting.
Good
That's
partner.
That's a
Good
keeper.
partner.
Kelsey's a keeper.
We're going to jump into the time capsule about Star Fox 64 and talk about basically the original release and the zeitgeist around this game. I'm just going to start and say, I'm going to ask a question to start, which is a quiz question. Do you all... words today. Do you all know how many N64 games total were released in 1997? Total, across all developers and publishers.
When did the N64 launch? Was that...
1996?
96, yeah.
So this must have been the first year when they're like, games need to get out of the door.
Yes.
I'm going to say 20 titles.
Okay.
I think it's too much. I would say... Because, like, the entire library is not that big.
Mm-mm.
Which is, like, wild to think of, like, in retrospect, because, like, that is probably my favorite console of all time. 97, I would say 8?
In North America, there were 34 games released on the N64 97.
Shoot. So the entire library was released in 97.
Yeah, pretty much, because that thing had a short lifespan, the N64, compared to, like, what we're used to now for consoles.
Because, like, it was really sort of sunsetted. Dude, I'm so prepared today. It was sunsetted, really, with Conker's Bad Fur Day in 2000.
Wow, another prop. He's wearing a Conker's t-shirt. That's
dude,
great.
I'm on a roll tonight. I do have a Star Fox beanie. I foolishly did not bring it onto the show.
Well, hey,
That's okay.
There's always next time if we talk about Star Fox Adventure. We probably won't do that.
You know what? When Star Fox Grand Prix inevitably comes out, we'll talk about it. Sorry, it's a running joke. It's never coming out.
Is that like Chocobo Racer GP or Chocobo GP? I said Chocobo GP.
Chocobo Chibis?
GBs? Yes, GP, the racing game. Words today.
There was a rumor a long time ago that Retro, the folks behind Metroid Prime and the Donkey Kong, the newer Donkey Kong platformers, that they were working on a Star Fox title called Star Fox Grand Prix that was a blend of Star Fox and F-Zero.
Ooh.
And that stuck in my mind for 5 years now. According to Imran Khan and his connections, that game existed at some point in time. Nintendo, release it. Cancel Metroid Prime 4. It's fine.
It's that
Nobody
game.
needs
That
it.
game isn't real. Let's be real.
Metroid Prime 4, that's also not a real video game.
Not a real video game. Speaking of racing games, here's some other games on the N64 that came out in 97. Diddy Kong Racing, Bomberman
yeah.
64, WCW NWO World Tour, GoldenEye, San Francisco Rush, Mario Kart 64, Doom 64.
Doom 64. Wow.
Did you play that one, Mo?
I played all the Doom, so I can only imagine the genesis of it all.
This one was developed by one group of Nintendo R&D folks. They had multiple R&D groups that eventually came together into one. Here's some of the prominent games that team developed: Pilot Wings 64, Super Mario 64, Wave Race 64. Did I say Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, F-Zero X, Pokemon Stadium 2? The list goes on. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Basically, the big bangers came out of the same group that put this game together. Miyamoto was a busy boy.
Miyamoto's a very busy boy. Nintendo's has always been, especially like in the N64 GameCube days, where like unlike Xbox and like PlayStation, where like Guerrilla has Horizon and Kojima has Death Stranding, so on and so forth. Nintendo was just Nintendo. Like other than like maybe HAL Laboratories having Smash 64, like there was never like a defined kind of like studio structure. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Kirby came out of that studio too. Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards, I think.
Oh, dude, Crystal Shards is so good.
Happy
birthday,
game.
Kirby. You know?
Happy birthday, Kirby. He's 30 now. He's
30. He's as old as I am.
Yes, he's younger than me, but not by much.
As old and as bald as I am.
I want to talk about a commercial that I found on the internet that I'll include as audio in like as we're talking about it. But I'm going to share this with y'all on Discord, and I implore you to watch this 30-second commercial because it is the most late 90s thing you will ever hear in your life.
64 test subject results. Stage 1, space combat mode. Stage 2, multiple
this is the
interactive
dream.
3D environments.
Doesn't that look like Mad Max, the movie, but also a low-budget commercial?
Stage 4,
Yes.
sub-adult rumble pack.
That looked like the perfect commercial for like a 10-year-old kid to like want a video game. That's a run down the hallway, knock on parents' door. I need Star Fox 64. That's what that told me right there.
Yeah, guess what? It worked. That was me. I was like, I want to be this desert man, like racing in desert planets and stuff. Please, Mom.
Mom, if you don't buy me this, you don't love me.
I'll take this as my disownment.
And it was one of the first games with the Rumble Pack, too. Did y'all have an N64?
This nice chubby box.
Oh, dang!
Yeah.
Can you just show that box off for the non-audio listeners?
It's for the listeners, Jacob. It's just for me and you, Jacob. Oh, man.
Oh, beautiful box. Look at that art.
And the Rumble Pack includes Rumble.
Includes Rumble Pack. 4 players. I love the fold for the only on Nintendo. Beautiful. Really cool planet art on the side with a couple of armings. Focus. It's okay. Then yeah, obviously the back with some screen grabs. And obviously showing off that beautiful Rumble Pack. What's this back say?
That's like a good unboxing, eh?
Is that your original copy, or is that...
No. Oh,
okay.
I just realized how blurry it was. No. I got this at... I think I got this at New York Comic Con a few years back. Paid too much money for it, but it's fine. Under 100. It's fine. But I saw there's this one shop. I believe they're in Massachusetts. I think they are always at like PAX East and New York Comic Con. Dial Up Games. They're just a really cool retro game shop. They do some restoration on cartridge stuff. They have a great collection of N64 titles, and that they've been kind of my avenue to sort of rebuild my N64 collection because we were all dumb kids in the 90s who sold their video game systems to get the next fancy thing, and I clearly remember selling my N64 for the original Xbox. So
I did something similar.
Not for Halo, but for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Rose. That was my selling point for the Xbox.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah.
Because I brought a duffel bag. It was a Detroit Red Wings duffel bag, and I just came in with a bunch of like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64 games, and I regret it so much. But I bought a PlayStation 2. So... I think I got Mega Man 8 with my PlayStation 2, and then like Sly Cooper or Ratchet and Clank or something like that. Like that's what I got. Not worth it.
My biggest regret in selling my N64, and especially seeing like some of the prices in current day, one of my favorite games of all time, and it's like a very bad video game, but Clay Fighters 64 Sculptor's Cut.
Yep.
Totally mediocre fighter. Goes for like $2,000 now. You cannot find it anywhere.
Why?
It's I don't understand. I think it's just like one of those like bad video games that they didn't make a lot of. And like, but I adore that game so much. And speaking of Conquer, I adore Conquer, but like that original cart goes for $200 now, something like that.
Ugh. See, I have a copy of the Xbox version of that game, but I'm assuming
Great
the
version.
resells is not like that. It's not $200.
I mean, even like, especially it's available digitally, and you can play it backwards compatible, stuff like that.
So I need to know, what color N64 did you have, and if you rebought an N64, what color did you buy?
I think just had the standard. I know I've had friends who had the jungle green and atomic purple. I rocked an atomic purple controller constantly, but console wise, it was just the standard gray, even when rebuying it.
Standard gray or standard black?
Let's find out.
I thought the standard was black.
Hold on.
More props. Black and gray.
Like, yeah, black and gray. It's like a dark gray, but yeah, like a faded black.
Okay. I thought for a second I was going crazy. I'm like, is that system gray?
I think like, yeah, the controller is light gray. If this is side by side with a GameCube, I would say the GameCube is like a jet black and this is like a dark gray.
Very fair. Very fair.
Welcome to the Color Podcast.
I'm going to ask you a question while it's relevant, and then I'm going to get into some critic reviews here. How did you play Star Fox 64 this time around? And give me your history with this particular game, because it's been released and re-released before. I'm going to start with Mike as our Star Fox 64 expert.
I mean, whenever I do my annual playthroughs that I've mentioned before, I always try to play it on N64, just because that's, not to be that kind of person, but it's like the most pure experience. But the 3DS version, I think, is incredible. Mm-hmm. That is a fantastic port. It's a very accessible port. It's beautiful looking, and it's like one of the few games that actually like looks very well and works very well in 3D, which is probably a hot take. This time around, for this year, I did play around with the Switch version, just because like Star Fox on Switch, hell yeah. It's good. Like, I like that it's accessible, that it's just easy. It's there. I could get it whenever I want. I don't have to find my HDMI cable for my N64 in order to play it. But yeah, it's good, and that's what I did most recently.
So I played the game on 64 back in the day. I got this game confused for a while because I also played it on 3DS, but I thought it was Star Fox Command for a hot second. I was like, what's the one that has like RTS style stuff in it? That's Command. Have you played Command? I
have. It's good.
It's cool.
I've never been an RTS person per se, but like, I mean, the curse that us Star Fox, like us diehard Star Fox fans have is that nothing will ever come close to being 64 again, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, Adventure had decent like flying moments. Assault had like fantastic on rail segments, but it got ruined by everything else. And obviously Zero is ruined by just the Wii U gamepad, which I have not played myself, but I just heard terrible things.
Isn't Guard supposed to be fun?
Oh, it's Slippy and Grippy? I don't know.
I'm getting confused. It's more of a turn-based strategy game than an RTS, but I think you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So I replayed it on Switch, and before I jump to Mo, I want to know controller. I didn't love how some of the commands I felt maybe weren't as responsive as I wanted. So I eventually figured out the controller and, pressing up and Y to do a flip, for example. Did you have any trouble there?
It's a little confusing at first. I think I was used to that confusion with the 3DS port, but it's not the same as like just the dedicated C buttons. Like that's always like ingrained in my mind that like, yes, left C is somersault and up C, I believe, is total backflip. It's just easier when it's dedicated buttons as opposed to, I think, on the Pro Controller is just joystick, right?
On the Pro Controller, it's joystick and a button that you have to press.
Yeah.
But
it's very weird.
It's like, kind of okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's serviceable, but not the ideal way to play this game.
And for myself, I played it on the Switch too, and I feel like I'm going to commit some Star Fox blasphemy, but my first introduction to Star Fox was Star Fox Adventures, and I absolutely loved it.
I don't think Adventures is bad by any means. It's just not 64.
Yeah, it's completely, totally different game. I think just at the very end, you get a little bit of the starship. Like, I don't want to spoil it too much, but a little bit of that. But I absolutely loved it. And when you mentioned let's do Star Fox 64, I've always wanted to do it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Fox was and still to this day is my Smash Bros. Like main. So like I always wanted to see like the original hyped game that everyone talks about. Like what's the big deal? Why is everyone always like so excited about it? So. Yeah, it's long overdue.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
it's a good video game. I want to read you some reviews from the press. Unfortunately, most of these reviews are down, but I have some snippets. GamePro gave this game 100% and said, furious flying, controller melting action, gorgeous graphics, and weird adversaries launched Star Fox 64 into the stratosphere. Electric Playground, shout out Victor Lucas, said there's no question that Miyamoto has raised the bar on arcade-style 3D space shooters once again, 8.5. And GameSpot 83 said Star Fox 64 is the kind of game you will spend many sleepless nights with, even after you finish. An instant N64 classic. Is this a classic?
Absolutely.
Why?
Granted, I'm biased, and this is my I don't know if I said it on air. This is my favorite game of all time.
You did.
I did. Thank you. I think what Electric Playground says, this is the quintessential. This is a staple in arcade style shooter. This is arcade brought to the home in exquisite and fresh fashion, and it's something that we haven't really seen at that time, as opposed to ports from arcade, like obviously like Paperboy was on like SNES, and like obviously there was Pac-Man, like stuff like that. But this was an inherently unique experience, tailor-made for console. And it was just SNES Star Fox just elevated to the next level with incredible lore, lovable characters, epic adventure scale. Like it just, it blew me away. This was the game, and is the reason why it's so like beloved by me and why I consider it my favorite game of all time. This is the one video game that my father and I connected with. Like, this was the one game that was like, oh, video games aren't just toys. They could actually be something more meaningful. And it was just off to the races from there.
So you've done a good job of telling us why. If there's someone on the planet who has not seen Star Fox 64 in action, like really simply, what is the game? Help set it up for us.
Sure. Star Fox 64 is an on-rails space shooter. On-rails being you are just the camera behind a spaceship called an R-Wing, and you are just following the ship on rails, not controlling in like an open space or anything, moving up, down, left, right, diagonals just to get through the level and shoot enemies to an eventual end game or end level boss. And you are following a branching path of multiple planets and whatnot off to a grand adventure to defeat the evil Andross. That was another thing too, why it was so regarded at the time. The branching path thing is something that, as far as I'm concerned, at least in my like simple-minded dumb 90s kid circle, branching narrative wasn't really a thing for me that early on. Granted, like compared to like branching narrative nowadays, like it's very simple and like laughable. But like back then, that absolutely blew me away. The fact that I could play that game countless times and every time find a different path and a different adventure, a new level, new characters. Like I remember like it took forever for me to find or to meet Kat in that game because I never like took that path. And it, like years later, it just blew me away that there was a character in that game hidden in a way that I never knew about.
I think the first time I played the game, I would have probably rented it from Blockbuster Video, and it's fair to say that you can complete the game. You can complete the game in quotation marks in 30 minutes. But I think there are a total of 25 distinct paths that you can take through this game. Mo, I know that we've asked you how you played it this time, but do you have like a reverence for this game? Did you play it back in the day, or is this kind of your first exposure?
This is my first time. I grew up as a PlayStation kid.
Whoa!
I never really played any of the original N64 games until like much older when I like bought the Wii version or the GameCube version or whatever it might be. So all the original N64 stuff, that was the friend down the street had the Nintendo, and then I had the PlayStation, and it was like a go back and forth to play what you want, but I never really had any of the titles.
So what did you think of it the first time you booted it up in 2022?
Oh, well, the straightforward thing. Obviously, it's visually dated, but at the same time, you can appreciate that like it's the next thing after a Space Invader, like vertical scroller. It now has some 3D elements. I love the parallax effect, how like when you shift to the right, the screen shifts to the left, adds that 3D element. I thought it was a very well-polished 90s game. So it definitely, the low poly is there, but at the same time it's 97. It's looked great for compared to the other titles that were out there, like puts GoldenEye to shame.
Hell yeah. So, I mean, you sort of answer this like passively, but being your first time playing it, how does it hold up as a brand new experience in 2022?
Being fresh, it was a little janky with the controls because I'm used to 2020 like Unity Engine, Unreal Engine movements and all of that. That aside, it does hold up. You can see where like the diversity of like the different paths. Even like one of the things I really liked was like speed boosting to like go through the meteor fields to finally squeeze into things. Just small little like mechanics that seem to be something from like 10 years ago, but this came out almost a quarter century ago, so it's pretty cool.
It is truly a technical marvel, like thinking that it came out in 97, and I specifically think of moments like that where you are flying like almost, I remember one specific path, and I forget what planet it was, but it was out in the kind of out in space, if you will, and you come down on a like almost like Star Wars Episode 4 style like little path that your ship just flies into, and you're shooting these little turrets, and I'm like, damn, they made a Star Wars.
Yeah, this is Nintendo Star Wars, and it freaking rules.
It does.
One of the things. Oh, sorry. One of the things I like loved is like the. So when you're firing a rocket, how like it would, if something was spiraling, the rocket would also follow the path. Small little visual elements that I'm like, this is like A1 stuff. Like how did 1997 have games of this quality? It's pretty shocking.
And this, like, yeah, it's easy to make the Star Wars I was going to say the Star Fox comparisons. It was easy to make the Star Wars comparisons with, like, yeah, epic space shooter. This is a story about a father and a son, also. Like, it's so freaking great.
And a story like that you don't get on some of the easier paths. So if there's this map, and if you're listening to this in the car, don't grab your phone. But if you're listening to this not in the car, grab your phone and Google Star Fox 64 map. Because sure, there are maybe only a total of like I think a little more than a dozen levels, but the way that you go through those levels, I just remember like really distinctly that the one thing I remember about Star Fox is on Corneria, which is the first level of the game. If you fly through a series of gates that are kind of or archways made out of stone,
like archways,
yeah. If you fly through them, you basically put yourself on a more difficult path. Going to Sector Y instead of going to one of the, an easier planet, which to me was also mind-blowing. We talked about the branching paths, but that's one thing I always remembered about this game.
So that first level does the Super Mario thing so well, where like how Miyamoto with the original Super Mario Brothers taught you how to play that game with like the Goomba running into you and jumping over platforms and so on and so forth. This game teaches you that if you see something a little weird, take advantage of it. Like, yeah, if you want to be cool and be slick and smooth and fly through those archways and feel like a total badass, you're going to get rewarded for it with, yeah, a more difficult path, but a secret boss and like a really cool like character moment with Falco that like there's like this playful rivalry, and that really gets built up in that little section beyond the waterfall where like there's like this weird competition of like trying to shoot down more enemies than you. It's just builds more character, builds out the world even further. It's, man, what a game.
The crew that you're with, we haven't mentioned them, but you play as Fox McCloud. He is an anthropomorphic fox, and he has 3 crewmates with him, Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, and Falco Lombardi. Yes, that's his last name. How did you feel about Slippy, Mo? I need to know.
What do you mean? He's a good guy. I'm primarily only focus all of my energy on Falco because that was my number 2 guy in Smash Bros. Sorry to keep talking about Smash Bros. But yeah, that's pretty much. I love the rivalry. I love Falco's character. But Slippy,
Fox, I need you to save me. I'm dying. Every time.
Wait till you meet Grippy.
Who's Grippy?
I think Slippy's dad.
Okay, and he's only in that Wii U game, right?
Yeah.
Do you know? Tell me more facts about Grippy.
That's all I got for you because I did not play it.
He's Slippy Dad. That's it.
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's Slippy Dad.
This game has a ton of branching paths, has a ton of different levels. I don't think we should go through them one by one, but I would love to go through some of your highlights and lowlights. And by lowlights, I mean which levels were exceedingly difficult because I have one. But Mike, as our expert, I'd love to get you first.
Well, first off, Grippy Toad is the uncle of Slippy Toad and Beltino Toad's brother.
Okay.
Grippy is the president of the Corneria Precious Metals Limited, a deep space mining company in charge of mining facilities in search for rare metals in space. Though, during his search, he comes across the trouble of being attacked by enemies. I don't know, that's a weird way to end that paragraph and that entire page. That's weird. Okay. Whatever,
One, you're a
that's
writer, but also he's a belter? He's a space commerce man?
He has hair. He has sort of like a very Hitler-like mustache. Yeah. Picture Hitler as a frog. And that's Grippy.
Slippy's uncle.
Slippy's... That's my uncle from Nintendo.
Oh,
Grippy
boy.
Toad.
Oh, boy.
Favorite level.
Why don't I jump in
easy...
here and give you my least favorite, if you want a
Sure,
little more time
please.
to think. I was playing this game on stream, twitch.tv/JacobMcCord, occasionally stream. And I was doing pretty well. I would say like a combination of, I started my path going from Corneria to the harder version, so I think going to Sector Y. I took a hard path, and then I came back to, I guess, like a medium difficulty path. But I got to a planet called Solar. Solar is the absolute dirge of my existence. Imagine,
like Solar.
It is a lava planet that there's lava all around you, and the boss is a big old lava man, and he throws like waves of lava and stones at you. And the whole level, I didn't mention, you are constantly losing health because your I guess ship doesn't have the proper heat shielding to be able to survive the planet. And so I lost basically all my lives on that planet and did not have a fun time there. Would not recommend for vacation.
I'm trying to get the exact name of the planet because I always forget about it. But so I do want to mention my least favorite first.
Go.
I thought it was Titania, but it's not Titania. The train level, where you're in the Landmaster and you're essentially chasing the train the entire time.
Yes, the Landmaster all day. Big gun. That's all I need.
Dude, but like chasing that train and trying to avoid those obstacles that are in your path is a nightmare. And I always, like, if I ever take that path, I always get totally decimated. And I always lose a bunch of lives on that.
That's Macbeth.
That's Macbeth. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also played that one, Landmaster, and that like kite boss is quite the difficult one, huh?
Yeah, dude.
So
I mean, there's ways to make it easier where if you do the similar thing to Corneria. If you go through the gates, I think it's like 8 to 10 gates, I believe, if memory serves correctly. Mm-hmm. Or if you go through all the gates properly, you could stun that boss and essentially give you a little bit of like breathing room to actually like take a
there's switches. You have to hit like 8 switches.
Yeah,
and if you don't hit all of them,
at the same time, you have to like shoot gates and like get through the gates because some of them are hidden behind those freaking gates.
Yep, wild. Absolutely wild.
If you don't get them, it is punishing.
And just to set the scene, the Landmaster like can come off the ground, but you are essentially like rolling straight on the ground, and it can roll left and roll right. But you also can lift yourself temporarily off the ground, maybe like an imaginary 10 feet. But you're pretty stuck, and that boss is a kite boss with like a claw that can come down and grab you. Not fun if you're not rolling around.
Yeah.
And I luckily had a walkthrough give me some suggestions on all the bosses. So the rolling is definitely underrated.
Mo, favorite either highlight or low light of different levels that you played?
Okay, don't laugh, but like I didn't use the jump with the Landmaster for like almost the entire mission, and then once I saw that it could fly, that was pretty much my highlight. But besides that, it's tough. I don't have like the nostalgia with this game, so there wasn't anything in particular that I said, oh wow, this is memorable forever. I think if I did play it way back when, that might change, but nothing that really like stands out.
So I would say if I highlight a couple favorites, any of the Star Wolf centric levels I adore, just because I love the rivalry between Star Fox and Star Wolf, and just how Nintendo in '97 was able to make incredibly designed dogfights in like a semi-open setting. So like love Finchina. Love that. I love Bolsey, which is the satellite towards the end.
I was
going
to talk about that level too.
Very cool. And
the gravity threw me off.
The gravity is fantastic. And even just like the color palette, like it gets really dark with like hues of like sort of neon blue reflecting off the satellite. So badass.
And if you didn't touch this level, Mo, imagine that like it is one of those like not open worlds, but you get like what are the arena battles in this game called again?
All range mode is like a way to put it.
Yeah, all range mode. Except the whole time your ship, or at least the ground, looks like it's maybe moving like a planet, just like turning. But it does this weird mind thing where you're like, am I moving? Is the planet moving? What is happening?
Oh, cool! Like it's
so
a rolling
cool.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Sorta. Yeah, it's I think it's supposed to be like the satellite is like turning in space, so like you're kind of like contradicting movement with it.
Cool. Imagine that you're a kid and you're spinning a globe, and it looks like that.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah,
and another all range mode one that like is probably my favorite all range mode mission, just because it harkens like it's a clear reference to Independence Day, and I love it. Is Katina with Bill, and Bill's just such like a good old proud American boy. Just wanted to do his planet right and just get in there and bust some heads open.
Yeah,
and I hate disappointing Bill when I shoot down an ally. It just always stings. Fox, that was one of ours.
Friendly fire. I think the first time I played, I kept shooting Falco, and I'm like, I was just like shooting with no regard for any of my crewmates.
Yeah, no.
It hits
There's
them.
consequences. It sucks.
It does.
And also just shout out to Venom also. That entire sequence where Andross is just where like you go off, you are alone, you leave your crew behind because like this is the admirable thing to do. You don't want to put your friends in danger. You gotta go one-on-one with this MFer. And you're going through that solo path, and Andross is just in your mind talking to you, and it's just like this psychological warfare of just being totally isolated and this ever-present, utterly evil being just trying to get into your head. Because he's like clearly afraid with like everything going on, everything that happened leading up to this moment. He wants nothing to do with you. He's afraid. He needs to win somehow, and he's just playing that psychological warfare and just like teasing you. And I love it so much.
And it is not like, again, this is a 25-year-old game, so I think spoilers are very fair to go through here. Andross is a head with hands.
Floating
great.
Hands.
Yeah. And he's not the easiest boss to easiest final boss to defeat, right?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the path, sort of. Yeah. I guess like trying to... So like the first phase where it's a floating head with hands, like it's a little tricky, like targeting or getting him to just put the hand up and targeting the hands, like shooting the eye because it's a very small target and he's like moving and waving around. Once you get the hand open, it gets a little easier. Obviously, when it's revealed that he's just like a giant robot head, then you just go all out. It's easy.
And man has backstory too. He's a mad scientist who gave himself powers and is a robot, right? I that is overly simplifying it, but.
Yeah. You nailed it. He's just a mad freaking scientist.
Did you beat the game?
And worth pointing out, if you never played this game, he's a monkey.
Yes, he's also a human monkey boy.
Yeah.
Mo, did you beat the game, or did you just kind of...
I played about an hour. I didn't get to Andross. I was struggling a bit, so I didn't complete it fully. Yikes.
Look, I won't lie. Back in the day, I have beaten this game multiple times. I played maybe, just to refresh myself, maybe like 2 to 3 hours of this game, and Mike is going to shake his head in disappointment. I also was unable to beat Andross. Because instead of being an idiot,
really?
I was a dummy, and instead of taking an easy path just to like see it all the way through, I took either normal or difficult paths the entire time, so I never beat Andross.
So this time around, because there is a canonical ending to this game. Obviously, this game has multiple endings.
Yep.
The canonical ending is, spoilers, James McCloud, Fox's father, who is supposedly dead at this point, or like missing in some different realm or whatever. He comes, saves Fox's ass, and it's so cool.
But only in like the more difficult like paths, right?
Only in the most difficult path. Yeah,
and that's
like
the final
canonical. Yeah, that's like the final canonical ending. If you do any of the other paths, it's like you destroy Andross, you escape, and you meet up back with your team. And there's no mention of James. And it's just like this like looming mystery. But yeah, if you are rewarded, it's similar to like Halo, playing Halo on Legendary. Like you like are rewarded for getting through the more difficult path and the more difficult ending. Because I think in that final battle also like Star Wolf pops back up, so you have to also like deal with Wolf at the same time as Andross, which is overwhelming.
And isn't he a brain in that more difficult one too?
Yeah, he's very much like a mother brain. Nintendo loves their brain bosses.
Yeah. So he's just monkey head with hands, then robot head in like I guess some of the normal difficulties, or even maybe the easy ones, and then the hard ones you get brain, and then in the most like the true ending is James McCloud coming to help you.
Yeah.
And then the post ending is, or the post credits, you get like a little like, hey, this is how many people you killed.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love summaries.
That's great.
Before I forget to mention it, Nintendo did a Muppets thing a few E3s ago with respect to Star Fox. Did they not?
For Star Fox Zero, that was kind of they centered that E3 around Star Fox Zero, and they made puppets of Reggie and Iwata, I think.
Mike, that sounds like a Venn diagram made
Miyamoto.
Specifically for you.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, they centered that whole E3. This is like the dream E3. Like, oh my god, we're focusing on a brand new on-rail Star Fox game. It looks incredible. They're leaning into the puppet idea. It's going to be the greatest thing of all time. The Wii U is the best console ever made. Wii U saved. Wasn't the story. I will say the coolest part about that whole thing, I adore the puppets. They're great seeing them on screen. In New York City, there is a store called Nintendo New York. Around the launch of Star Fox Zero, or I should say, backtrack a little bit, around the launch of big Nintendo titles, they have a showcase like centerpiece on the second floor, kind of like just to they usually change out to kind of like reflect what the big titles are. So like when a Pokemon title comes out, they'll like have like a bunch of Pokemon statues or like whatever. They have like all the amiibo out, and they constantly add all the amiibo. Or like I think when Breath of the Wild came out, they had like a history of Zelda like in that showcase.
I was in New York when Metro Dread came out, and they had like a Dread merch and like a Dread display. It's
so sick. When Star Fox Zero was coming out, they had the puppets. They are so cool in person.
Yeah.
The amount of the desire to commit crimes in Midtown Manhattan to get those damn puppets.
I can just imagine a man, like a grown man, running out of Nintendo New York, just holding like a Star Fox puppet.
Yeah, just like going down the Mario flagpole to the first floor, jetting out.
Mike. he's covering for it right now.
If crimes were legal and you could steal one of those puppets, which puppet would you steal?
Sir, if the purge eventually happens,
that's what I was going to say.
I'm getting all three of those, or all four of those damn puppets.
Everyone's going after Vendettas. Mike's got some Muppet helmets and then have puppets to grab.
I don't think many people want to kill me, so I think I'll be safe to just sneak into Nintendo headquarters and take those puppets.
The second biggest Star Fox fan of all time will find you and kill you.
Yeah, I'll have a battle royale over
You're Falco, yeah.
Yeah, my wolf. Yeah. Did you know that there was an animated, a claymation Star Fox series for Netflix in the works that got canceled?
Use more words.
It claymated Star Fox Netflix series. It got greenlit, but Nintendo canceled it because it got leaked out.
What?
Because that's a Nintendo ass move. It was that, and I believe there was a Zelda series like in talks at the same time.
That was much later, though,
like the
wasn't
Star
it?
Fox one. It seemed like they were happening at the same time, sort of, but it seems like the Star Fox one was more developed. But like Nintendo, after the Super Mario Brothers movie back in the day, Nintendo is very weary with their licenses. So I'm assuming they just got stage fright and just pulled the plug.
You mean like Chris Pratt's Super Mario Brothers movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
Oh boy.
You know that's coming out this year.
I can't believe it. Is it going to be bad or good?
It's going to be great.
Am I allowed to say fine?
Yes, you are.
It's going to be fine.
I just want to hear Chris Pratt's Mario voice. That's all.
I want to hear Charlie's Luigi. I can't wait.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be great.
Graphics and sound. We talked a little bit about the graphics and the cool parallax effects. Had some pretty cool music in this game, right?
Super cool music. I mean, the first game was kind of revolutionary with its sound effects chip. It had something installed in the cart itself to allow more intricate sound effects being for SNES. And I think this game, even visually on the SNES, this is the most visually striking Super Nintendo game. And I feel like this is very much a spiritual successor to that lineage. And yeah, I would say this is the most impressive production on a production standpoint. This is the most impressive 64 game.
What about games that had the expansion pass or expansion pack rather, like your Majora's Masks and your DK64s?
Majora's is pretty, but I feel like
that Moon though.
The Moon, great. I feel like art direction goes a long way. I think I adore Majora's Mask. Behind me, blurred in the background, there's another prop. You can see the mask. I'm on fire today. Visually pretty, but like I think that grungy, dirty, dark aesthetic doesn't work super well on 64-bit consoles or even like more retro consoles. Whereas Star Fox always gave off that sheen, kind of just that Star Fox look where it felt like a very lived in world, but it was clean. It was very vibrant. Colors popped. Character design was beautiful and varied. Not to mention VO and stuff like that we should probably tailor in if we're talking about sound and whatnot.
So let me lead the witness and maybe have you paint a picture for us. If you could get a brand new Star Fox game on the Switch or a future console in 2022, what would need to be in that game? And Mo's losing his mind too, so I'm going to ask you both. What would need to be in that game for it to be a success in your mind?
So it's one of two things.
Yep.
Just do 64 again. Hell, honestly, granted, I have not played Zero, like I said earlier, but from what I've gathered, the biggest problem with Zero is the Wii U gamepad. Take out the Wii U gamepad mechanics and port that thing to Switch, which I think, in my mind, I believe that's the only Wii U game that has not been ported to Switch yet. So, I mean, there might be something else, but I believe that's the one big one. I think maybe if we're counting NES Remix or something like that, that also hasn't come. Which, bring NES Remix to Switch, please.
Yeah, that's a good game.
It's a real good game. So give me a more polished Zero. Like, take the criticism, take out any of the motion stuff, and it seems like that's a solid Star Fox game. Not to mention, side note with Zero, have y'all ever watched the animated short film that was tied to Zero?
No.
Incredible. It's like the best 17 minutes of my life.
It's
incredible.
Cutscenes episode.
Yeah, hey, I have a video game
good.
movie podcast that maybe that's a good short for.
And while you're looking that up, I was joking around earlier, but I think the premise of a Star Fox racing game sounds brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why that's not been a thing.
Great question, Mel.
Yeah.
Nintendo. But so, especially because my like madman theorizing went out of play a little bit, and so do you know the theory with James McCloud, or like the fan theory with James McCloud?
No.
Nope.
James McCloud is also a character in F-Zero. So there's a theory, or has been a theory, that it is the same James McCloud that Fox's father slipped into a wormhole or something, ended up in the F-Zero universe, and has been trying to like gather resources and gain money to find the technology to get back to his son. So I will love a Star Fox racing game where there is a narrative behind James McCloud, and I would love it to be a blend of Star Fox characters and F-Zero characters.
Holy moly! I've never looked at James McCloud. He is basically James McCloud from Star Fox, but a human.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. So like when the Star Fox Grand Prix rumors started like spurring up, in my mind it felt like a match made in heaven. Like, yes, revive Star Fox in a fresh way and revive F-Zero in a brand new way.
Because F-Zero GX for the GameCube is a phenomenal game.
I would argue probably, aside from Wind Waker maybe, the best GameCube game. Punishingly difficult. But man, like that is the Forza Horizon of GameCube.
Wow, okay.
Heavily overlooked. Not enough people played that game.
Mo, are you down with this basically remake of Zero or 64 to be a new game?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know. I feel like bringing back a Star Fox 64 in 2022, I don't think it would fit if it's on rails again. I think just like maybe even open world, like moving around like a galaxy to finish a mission, like open, maybe that makes it more appealing to like the average person. But yeah, I think that's probably the only thing I'd want. I wouldn't want to be stuck on rails. I think I'd want to be able to like navigate freely to find or like explore in a galaxy. Like, hey, you're in the Milky Way or whatever version of it. I think that's what I would prefer.
You essentially want like the flying levels in a Ratchet and Clank game with the Ratchet and Clank overworld as a Star Fox game.
Yeah, or even like to make it even more wild, the Assassin's Creed Black Flag. You know how you have the open seas and the like with different missions, something like that. That'd probably get me in right away.
Listen, I'm down with either a Star Fox 64 remaster, a remake of Star Fox Zero, or this open world Star Fox game that you're proposing. If y'all want to watch the Star Fox vignette that Mike mentioned, it's on YouTube. It's on the Nintendo official page. It is called Star Fox Zero: The Battle Begins. It looks like Star Fox anime, and I'm in.
It's Star Fox anime.
Oh my god!
It is so good. It is a crime that this wasn't picked up as a full run animated series. Like, it's just a 1 season, 8 episode run. Just adapt the Zero story into this baller looking anime.
So what I'm going to do is
so
I'm going to link both the Nintendo press conference that had the puppets and this in the show notes. So if you want to watch them both as soon as we're done, I would implore you, and I think Mike would super implore you to do that.
It's so good. It's so good.
Anything here that we haven't covered with respect to Star Fox 64?
I think only one last thing. If we didn't mention it early on, it's free to play with Nintendo Switch Online. So if someone doesn't have it or hasn't played it, but you subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, fire it up. Why not? Give it a shot if you haven't played it.
With the expansion pass.
Yes.
Which that is a thing. Holy smokes!
And full disclosure, the ports on 64 on Switch, not the cleanest things in the world. Mm-hmm. They're playable, but like not super great. If you have a 3DS, the 3DS port is fantastic.
Yeah, if you had to order them, 64 original, 3DS port, the Switch port. I think those are the only places you can get it. Can you get it on Wii U?
Possibly on Virtual Console. I think they had 64 games on Virtual Console.
They did, I think.
Yeah, so it must be part of that.
It's on there.
Yeah.
So, multiple ways to play a very good video game.
Now, Jacob.
Yes.
Of course, I'm editor-in-chief, co-founder of an indie games website. I'd be remiss to not mention that this year, 2022 of our Lord and Savior, is in fact the year of the Star Fox Renaissance.
Okay.
Ooh.
Tell me more.
There are a number of indie titles in development directly influenced by Star Fox 64.
What are these games?
I will gladly tell you. I'll name a couple. There's Astrodogs, which was slated originally, I believe, for 2022 coming to Switch. Astrodogs is on-rails space shooter with a wonderful cast of characters filled with, just of dogs. I previewed it a little bit. The feel is not quite there yet, but the idea is there. So hopefully, taking that extra year or so with some extra polish, hopefully it gets there. There's Whisker Squadron by Slippy. They're the folks behind Race the Sun, if you've played that PlayStation Plus title for PS4. Whisker Squadron is on-rail shooter where you play as a cast of animal cats or whatever. Animal cats? Whatever. Sure. But the shtick is that this is a roguelike Star Fox game. So different paths, procedurally generated levels, different bosses every time. Again, I previewed this a bunch. The feel is getting there. We'll see if it's hitting in 2022. I feel like it might slip into 2023. We'll see. Another one I played years ago at this point. I was told there is a single player coming, but I played the multiplayer. DogFight by Petrichor Games. Okay. It is what it sounds like. You play as dogs fighting it's dog fighting as dogs in like an all range mode arena. That's what I played.
Dog fighting. Got it.
Yeah, dog fighting. But the crown jewel, my friends. Ex-Zodiac by Ben Hickling.
Okay.
Zodiac.
This is Star Fox, all except in name and characters and lore. This game looks and feels utterly phenomenal. Ooh. And it is exactly how a Star Fox game should feel and play in 2022.
Wow, this looks like a Star Fox game.
Yeah, it's like a little old retro looking.
It looks like the SNES
visually,
version.
Yes, visually inspired by the SNES original. But man, this is I have the preview demo still on my desktop. This is something I go back to every now and again when I just need to feel something. I play this demo nonstop for the past like year and a half, and man, this thing feels incredible. If it is the dream Star Fox game, like in my mind, like I don't want this would be a good thing for Ben. I would love Nintendo to pick up on this and offer Ben a ton of money just to throw Star Fox characters.
Like Sega did with Sonic and
with Sonic Mania.
Yeah, with Sonic Mania and not Machine Head. Why do I think of Machine Head? What is the guy's name who essentially
I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to look this up, but Machine Head. Keep going about Ex-Zodiac, sorry.
No, visually looks incredible.
Yeah.
It looks like a polished... you know what? It's something I keep telling people. It feels and looks like how you remember Star Fox SNES feeling and looking like. Similar to like the Tony Hawk remakes, it feels like how you remember Tony Hawk feeling like, but like going back to it, maybe it doesn't hold up as great 20 plus years later or whatever. But what Ben is building is essentially my dream game, and I cannot wait for this freaking thing to finally release like in full fashion. He keeps updating the preview build, and I think like at this point maybe 8 missions are available, but I'm trying to stop myself because I want to savor it all at once.
Aww.
But yeah, branching paths, all that. Looks incredible, feels incredible, can't wait.
It's in early access now. If you want to download the demo on Steam, you can. It looks like it's coming out in early 22 according to Steam.
Yep.
It was kickstarted and doubled 2.5 times its goal of £20,000. It made £50,000, 2,100 backers. Were you a backer?
Of course I was a backer. Are you kidding me?
Game
I was a
for
backer
you.
for this. I was a backer for Whisker Squadron. Come on.
So did you just make a segment on the show? Because I kind of love it. Mike's Indie Game Corner.
Yeah, it's totally.
Oh, please.
You did it. It's done.
Every time you get if there's a game that you guys are covering that you need the indie alternative to, I got you.
Look at that. We
Right
made
on.
it. Do we need to trademark that? Is that something that we should make a JPEG and
I'll
put on the
it's fine.
blockchain?
If you want to, I'll create a NFT.
Okay. Can I just
little
Control
monkey
C,
drawing.
Control V it, and download it on my
Yeah,
desktop?
if you want a print screen right now,
Okay.
you're covered.
I got it.
There we go.
I have your NFT now.
Thank you.
Well, hey, those are our thoughts about Star Fox 64 and some great indie games that you can play that cop the same feel. Ew. Cop the same feel? Ew.
Jacob,
Ew.
come on.
Grippy Toad, baby.
Oh, boy.
Slippy Toad.
Slippy Toad. Ew, gross. I'm going to end this show and say, Michael, thank you so much for coming. Are you Michael? I'm nervous. Please take over.
Wow.
Talk about
Michael,
yourself.
I haven't heard that name in many years.
Tell us about yourself before I talk about Grippy again.
Michael is the name my mother expresses when she's very pissed at me.
God. You know what my middle name is?
What is it?
It's Michael.
Oh.
Ooh. Hell yeah.
You know what my middle name is?
Jacob.
What's your
No, I'm
middle name?
kidding.
You don't have a middle name, do you?
I know it's my dad's name, Abdul Monum. It's very fancy.
Ooh.
That's very fancy.
Mine's James.
Ooh.
Because I was originally supposed to be named James, but then there's a
James
last
McLeod. It comes full
last-
circle.
Oh, it comes full circle.
You freaking did it.
What was the question? What am I talking about?
6-1 Indie. What dat?
6-1 Indie is an independently operated games media outlet with a focus on indie gaming. We have 61indie.com, spelt out SIXONE, indie. On the website, we do reviews for indie games, previews, special features, what you usually find on your games media outlets. We have our Pillar podcast. Nope. What's that phrase? Like the podcast.
Flagship.
Beachhead podcast.
Flagship.
There it is.
Flagship. Our flagship podcast, the 6-1 IndieCast weekly show where we just talk about what we're playing or like any major indie topics that are floating around. We also have our monthly kind of like chill out podcast, Dollar Slice. And we do a bunch of stuff on YouTube. Like I personally, or along with a lot of the team, do a lot of developer conversations. So like Ben, if you ever hear this, let's freaking chat, my friend. Do a lot of first impression pieces on YouTube, stuff like that. And coming up this week, which I believe you said this is going live on Wednesday. So yesterday, I posted my review of Nobody Saves the World, as well as an episode of our First Impressions video series called Show and Tell, where Kyle and I play through some high-level late-game dungeons, just to kind of show off what the game looks like 25 hours in. Also, play Nobody Saves the World. It's freaking incredible. It's Dreambox's best game yet. It's on Game Pass. No excuse.
There you go. And where can you be found on the Twitter machine?
I could be found... Well, 61indie could be found at 61indie. Should have mentioned that. And I could be found at Mike Towndrow. MixTowndrow.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I said Star Fox 64.
Thank you.
How did this happen? Did I just say Star Fox and you were like, hey, I'm here?
I think you DM'd me and you were like, hey, give me 2 games. I was like, okay, there's only 2 games that exist. Star Fox 64 and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And you chose the lesser evil.
Yeah, I thought about it. I won't lie.
That would be... Have you ever played it?
I have. I've beaten it back in the day.
Cool. An easier game to revisit. Mo, have you ever played it?
No, I have not. Nintendo is a blind spot for me.
You would struggle with this game.
Ooh, thanks.
Not a fun one.
Man, still a delight.
Thank you so much.
Sonic Unleashed, currently $4.50 on Xbox. Guess what I'm buying and playing tonight?
That's a
Sonic
bad game,
Unleashed,
isn't
baby.
it?
I don't know. I never played it. I'm going to play it.
Yes, please let us know about that.
60 FPS on Series X now. I'm down for high frame rate Wear Sonics.
His thoughts will be on Twitter at MixTowndrow. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
This was a blast.
A great game, a great guest, and great Scott. Let me tell you about where you can find this podcast. You can find it at Left Behind Club on Twitter, at Left Behind Game Club on Instagram. And if you want to join our Discord server where we talk about video games with some cool folks, you can find the link to that at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. Before I intro myself or tell you about myself, the reason I brought up Machine Gun Head with respect to Sonic Mania, it was developed by Headcanon and Christian Whitehead. That's where my brain went. I just needed to say that into a microphone.
I will say I would love a Sonic Wolfenstein game.
That would be strange, but I'm into it.
Dude, we got Shadow the Hedgehog was close.
Yeah, he had a gun. That was the thing. You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCord on all major podcasting, on all social... Oh, my God. You can find me on all social media platforms at Jacob McCord, JACOBMCCOURT. I host another podcast called Cutscenes. It is a video game movie podcast that releases seasonally. You can find that on all major podcasting platforms. My friends are holding up toys. Tell me about your toys.
This is Supersonic Duck. But continue your plugging, please.
Mo, go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
You can find me on almost all social media platforms at Embertati, but most importantly in that Discord server that Jacob mentioned, and that can be found at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. Come on down, chat, learn about some deals that are out there about video games, as well as meet the crew. We have a pretty big community, and we love meeting new people. Jacob, back to you.
Well, hey, we have some new announcements that are coming on our next episode. So if you want to find out more about the future of the Left Behind Game Club, listen to our February shows. Big announcements. Big announcements. Big.
Exciting too. I'm really excited for 2022, and that announcement I think will shed some light on why.
That is the end of our show.
They sold out.
Yeah, we sold out. We sold the company. James McLeod is our new owner. We're making NFTs now. Mo, take us home. What do we say at the end of every one of our episodes?
Well, we got to shout out Mr. Michael Ruffalo, and that, my friends, is one less game left behind.
Hey, I'm Jacob McCord.
I'm Katie Lesbrance.
And I'm Travis Colnett.
We are hosting a brand new podcast called Cutscenes.
There are tons of video game podcasts and tons of TV film podcasts, but we're going to bring you the intersection of both and talk about video game, movies, and TV.
I know what you're thinking. Aren't most of them not very good? Wrong. Some of them are fine. And we're going to tell you all about them.
Make sure to subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. Follow us on Twitter at cutscenes_pod. And most importantly, give us a listen.
See you soon.
Cutscenes. a video game movie podcast.